Welcome, everybody. Bienvenue. Yinakushe Inakabo. We are here today. We have a t-shirt with Sundiata Keita. Check him out, right in the middle. Mansa Musa. And then we got Ezana of Aksum. And Ezana of Aksum as well. So it's very important that we embellify our ancestors. Of course, we also have Pianki, King Pianki of ancient Kemet Kush. So we have a few of those great kings on the t-shirt, so we can replicate their greatness. Ashe.
Do you know that it's Black History Month in the UK?
That's exactly what I was thinking. Let's rock the Black History is World History t-shirt. Black History is World History. That's what it is. That's what's up. So we're rocking those ancestors with pride. Thanks for the reminder. Today we're broadcasting live from Toronto and from Cabo Verde. Ashe. Cabo Verde Islands. And I'm going to be asking Claire Onyama about her journey. And this is about good hair. There's a book which I read, which was 400 Years Without a Pick. And that stimulated me to get to these questions, because it just talked about how Black people had been trying to use those European combs for a very long time and thought they had bad hair. Whereas if they used the pick instead, they'd realize that the pick is more adapted to Africans. And so it really leads you to a reflection on the tools we've been using to judge our capacities in this world. Okay, so today we have a few questions. First of all, Onyama, Carefree Travels, we have a question for you. Please discuss, what was your first notion of good hair? What first in your life was a notion you had of good hair initially when you started this path of life?
I've given it some thought, and honestly, I think it was when that movie came out, the Chris Rock movie, Good Hair. Like, do you remember that? Because hair was neither good nor bad before that point. Like, it's always something that I've associated with African Americans, like the good hair good hair is manageable and straight or wavy or curly. Like, it's not a concept that I was aware of growing up. It's nothing, my mother never says that to me, good hair, bad hair.
Okay.
And also, actually, come to think of it, bad hair is a term that I was more familiar with from my teens onwards when I lived in the UK. And I was going to boarding school, and there were girls who had greasy hair or like lanky hair, like they had to wash their hair every day. So yeah, it just wasn't part of it. It didn't come into my consciousness. Like, I never thought my hair was good nor bad.
Yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting. The further question, I think you started answering it already, but maybe you'll go more into details on this question. What was your hair journey growing up? When you were growing up, how did it happen? What were you doing with your hair? What was fancy? And I guess you talked about boarding school as well and what happened there. So if you want to just go a little bit more into details into that journey.
Sure. I think as a child, I didn't think about my hair. It was just something that my mother managed. And, it was like a Sunday afternoon / evening ritual. So I think it would start on a Saturday. I'd have to wash my hair. And initially my mum would wash my hair. And I think she must have been really gentle, because I don't remember, painful episodes of like Saturday morning hair washing, right? And then, and then she would just braid it on a Sunday, and I would go on about my life. So let's say I was maybe 6, 7, 8. Started being conscious about my hair. I think when girls my age, black girls my age, were also started chemically straightening their hair, because I think right up until that point, it was my hair in braids, cornrows. My mom was really quite creative, actually. You know, very careful.
Now, did you have just a question as you're going along? Did you have lots of what they call back home jonks? Lots of long jonks that you planted regularly when you were coming up?
That came from like when I hit secondary school, because obviously 10, 11, you want to, you know, like, actually another thing is that there was a shift, because we lived, I started using hair extensions. I mean, I didn't even call them hair extensions until I moved to the UK, moved back to the UK, but I started having my hair braided with extensions, I'd say towards the end of primary school, beginning of secondary school. And that's the first time that I started going to school where there were other African children. And they were predominantly African, you know, a few people from the Caribbean, but mainly African girls. And I was like, oh, you know, and then it was, I wouldn't say it was rivalry, but, you know, we all had our hair braided. It was, and I didn't think about it that much, but I think chemically straightening my hair was something that I bugged my mum for. Oh God. And
you bugged your mom to have your hair straightened? Oh,
yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I mean, although I grew up in Africa, you know, when I was in for a small section of my youth, when we came back to Europe, I think I was exposed to all these things. Like once in a while, I'd go through the torture of having my hair pressed with a
hot comb, man. Okay.
Oh my God. You know, and the thing is, I hated the process. And now that, you know, now that I'm an adult, I know that that smell was steam and hair being cooked. And it just seems crazy, like, you know, and scalp burns. For what? Because my hair, my natural hair is just as stubborn as I am. So you can straighten it, you can straighten it with you know, flat iron and all that. It just reverts. It's very porous, very susceptible to humidity. It just doesn't want to be straight. Even when it's straightened, it doesn't want to be straight. So I lost that.
Back. Does it curl back into its natural curl?
Yeah.
Was that like a subtle message the hair was giving you back in the day?
Telling you. But you know, when you're young, you're like, no, I can manipulate. I can control. Yeah, it was having none of it.
Wow, the hair is very powerful. The hair is talking to you in ways that you can comprehend sometimes. Wow.
I was like,
wow, that's deep. Okay, the next question, which will come to mind, how did your hair journey change once you had autonomy and you became an adult? Now you're saying that your mom wasn't very, which is very good. I think lots of times, and maybe it's more with African American Africans too. It's lots of times it might be the mom who's influencing, but you're saying that it was pretty different in your case. Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, there were comments though. Sorry for, like, I'm okay, disclaimer, I'm not having a go at my mum. There were comments though sometimes, like when I started experimenting with my hair, there were comments like, oh, you know, your natural hair is growing, there's a lot of it, you should relax it. And it was never meant as an insult. It was always like a compliment, like, oh, look, you know, your hair is all scrunched up in its natural form. Why don't you stretch it so people can see the length? And yeah, but you know, I mean, we also surrounded by images of Caucasian beauty standards.
Yeah. Yes.
It's difficult to,
What do you think about now on this topic, since you're talking about it? I think in some African countries they've banned white models being on the adverts outside. So I heard there are some bold steps being made to do that. On a different topic, on a tangent, but what would you, since we're questioning you, what would your impressions be?
That's really, I think it's really forward thinking, because why are you trying to sell this really damaging idea of what, it's literally unattainable for a person whose hair texture is not naturally like that. And I think it's really damaging to young girls and women, like women of all ages, because, I mean, I could tell you, I know this is about my hair journey, but I could tell you about Black women that I've seen who, they will chemically straighten their hair to the point where you can like, they pull it back and you can see their scalp. It's like the sweetness, the straighter it is, the closer to God you are. I don't know. But my hair journey actually evolved, and thanks to YouTube. Thank you, YouTube. So before the Black girls got, and it's mainly the American girls, let's face it, got on to YouTube, I didn't know how to care for my hair. I would read blogs, and there was a forum called Fotki where Black women, Black girls who were saying, oh, this is how I care for my hair, this is my hair care regimen. And I really got into that. Like, I got immersed into that culture in, I'd say, around 2010, 2009, the noughties. And I'm so grateful for that because I learned so much. It was the beginning of me actually thinking about what was in those hair products, because there are chemicals that are damaging to human health in those products. Like literally the lye and relaxer can give you burns. And I remember the story of this woman who had got a bad batch of relaxer, and she suffered burns on her scalp that sent her to hospital, and she's permanently bald, but also scarred. It just seemed crazy. So I started learning how to care for my hair. There was a lot of trial and error, and I think the people, men and women who are also familiar with the kind of natural hair community, or even just the Afro hair community, or I don't know what the politically correct term is for Afro hair anymore. Is it tightly coiled hair, right? So
you don't think it'll be Dada, would it? I was just joking. You want to go?
Technically, that's my final frontier. So watch this space.
That's very interesting because I know in Yoruba tradition, children who are born with their hair really natted, their name traditionally will be Dada. That will be part of their name. So it's interesting that you're talking about it, and how in Creole that's seen as sometimes it's a bad thing, but it's a neutral thing. It's the natural hair thing, right? But going further to our next question, which is I think very pertinent to the people who might be watching. Did you experience any difficulties in the corporate sphere when you, for example, decided maybe you were going to have more natural hair? And are there any examples you would like to talk about for those who are going out there? And I think sometimes some people think it's not professional. I mean, I know there's people who might say that. So what were your experiences?
Okay, so by this time I'm an adult and I've had natural hair. I've had relaxed hair, I've had, what's the other one? Texturized hair, I've pressed my hair, I've done all sorts of, we didn't talk about weave.
Oh, the
Nice.
weave. Okay, so was that, what would you like to say add about the weave?
So the weave was the next level above relaxed hair for me because I remember for graduation from school, I had my first weave put in. And that was like, oh, look, I've arrived. I'm 18 now. I finished school. Look at my weave. And I went mad. I had like highlights in it.
What was
I
it, like
remember
a status symbol, the weave, or something? Or was it
I
something else?
think for me it was a personal milestone because I mean,
Okay.
like my hair never looked like weave. Like my relaxed hair never looked like weave. So I was like, oh my god, I can have it as long as I want. I can have it crazy colors, and you know, my hair will stay just magically not natural but healthy underneath because that was kind of the thing. Like,
Okay,
you
okay.
look amazing. You can do whatever you want to it. You can straighten it, curl it, and you know, you don't have to worry about damaging your natural hair. So
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, so
Best of
those.
both worlds type thing. Best of both worlds type thing.
But I mean, it wasn't really.
Yeah.
it, it was the novelty of it. The allure was, oh, I look like, you know, the girls in the music videos.
Beyonce, maybe? Not to name any names.
Oh, this was before Beyonce. I mean, I'm thinking like maybe SWV or something like that.
Oh, SWV, yeah, yeah, yeah. And Tony Braxton with Whitney Houston.
Yeah,
Yeah.
honestly, I always wondered, like, how did they get their hair to do that? Because I didn't know about hair extensions. Well, not that kind of hair extensions, but you know,
Mm.
Tina Turner. I was like, how?
Tina Turner,
What?
yeah. Yeah.
I was
She
like,
was a
what?
big one.
Her hair does that. My hair doesn't do that.
Okay, okay. Yeah, for the males a little bit was like the Jacksons and then the Jerry curls, and I remember that as well, to tell you the truth. So this is your interview, so I'll say that.
And yeah,
Okay.
I knew about your hair too. This quid pro quo, like you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The greasy activators. Yeah, that is it was a inflammatory risk, as Michael Jackson experienced, right? You were going to combust. Your head was going to eventually combust. So it was very dangerous, that hairstyle. Now,
I tried.
go
I
ahead.
tried that. Not the Jerry curl. Okay, so you know they rebranded it, and it was Wave Nouveau.
Okay, okay.
And I think basically I must have discovered it. Now I remember my mum having it, and I can't remember like in the 80s. I remember her having it as you know the next best thing, and it looked cute. And then obviously like I was. So this was maybe 15 years later. I discovered it for the first time, and I tried it. And it honestly, it was great for a while. The hair products were a bit smelly,
Yeah, oh
just
yeah, oh yeah.
and inconvenient. But I mean, it was fun for a while until my hair started breaking off like you wouldn't believe. Oh my god! And that's when I had a short natural cut. But when I say short, I mean like not quite a grade one, maybe half an inch all over my
Okay.
head.
So you try to
It
hide the
was
fact that hair was falling off.
no, it just broke off. It
Just broke
like
up.
it was coming off. Like I'd wake up in the morning, it was on the pillow, it was coming off in the shower, and I was oh my god, it was crazy. I actually how did I deal with that? I think I tried various conditioners that didn't work because I think it
Mhm.
was that damage was it was over.
It was
So
over.
I think
He said.
I
Yeah.
didn't cut it through. I just braided it up and thought, you know what, we'll give it a few months, braid
Mm.
it, think about it, move on. But yeah, like and and yeah, I like my hair will grow pretty quickly. So I remember after that I decided to leave the chemicals alone. I was like, that's the end of me and Wave Nouveau. And
Yeah.
the flip side of that is that with my natural hair and my hair in braids, but it was mainly just like it looked like a shortcut. And eventually I did get it shaped up by a hairdresser. I kept it low because it was, sorry, makeup brush. It was so liberating. I could go running, I could swim, I could cycle, I could do whatever I wanted and just wash it and get on with my life.
Yes.
Yeah, freedom.
Aerobics. Yeah, I agree. You could do your calisthenics. Okay.
So you
thanks for
you
all
mentioned
that.
the
Yes. So the pulse was a question, yes. In the example.
that I had my hair low like that, natural and low, and it was kind of like maybe really the thing that I remember is how, like, you asking me about, positive reinforcement about my hair. And I just remember having an Asian colleague who saw me like the Monday after I'd had my fresh cut on that Saturday. And he's like, oh, like the hair short back and sides, I see. And I don't know if it was just, I don't really know if it's, at work, you never really know if it's genuine or not, but he noticed, and he's the only one who did notice. And I think that's actually the only compliment I've ever had. I really had to think back. I think that's literally the only compliment I've ever had about my hair at work, because it's the thing is, in the UK workplace, it's really taboo.
Okay.
You don't really, I don't know, like, and to be honest, I know that my ex-colleagues are not going to watch this, so it won't matter, but I did go off the rails with my hair. Like, I remember from, 1 week to the next, it could be straight and long 1 week, so hair extensions, right? Or like braided hair extensions. It would be straight 1 week. And I just assumed that everyone had a measure over the weekend, and then like the following week it might be a different color, it might be it might be straight, it might be kinky. I just did whatever I wanted. I think that it hampered my progress? No, I really don't think it was my hair. I didn't think that people really cared about the way I dressed or the way that my hair looked. I think it was neither here nor there, probably because I was working in engineering and construction.
Okay.
Yeah. So, as a woman, I was a minority, and as a Black woman, I was a unicorn, literally.
Wow, it's very interesting. We got to talk about the construction a little bit more in detail some other time. But yeah, okay. Any anecdotes or any? I think do you have a story or anything about that, or was it pretty much positive, the contributions, or neutral?
No, I did have one comment from this girl at work, and she told me that she thought that my braids were unprofessional. So yeah, she's like half French, half English. We did actually become friends afterwards, but I remember it was the first time I worked with her, and she's like, I think that, and I'm going to do the accent because I don't care. She's like, I think that it's not professional. And this woman was insane. She would come, so she had naturally wavy hair, let's say, right? She would come from the humid drizzle, out of the drizzle outside. And so just like Afro hair, it would just crinkle up, right? And so this woman saw fit to bring her flat iron, plug it in at her desk, and proceed to straighten her hair in front of entire open plan office. I mean, I actually thought she had lost her mind, but that's not the craziest behavior that she exhibited. She also used to do her makeup at her desk. Thing is, the way our desks were, imagine, like a dining room table with the head of the table. So our director was sitting at the head of the table, and we were just, on either side, the length of the table. I was like, what are you doing? I mean, you know, 'cause as a woman in an engineering firm, you're already in the spotlight just for showing up and not being part of HR or IT, like the support function, right? It's a
Okay.
fully fledged engineering.
Mhm.
I was like, what? Why are you doing this? All the girls in the office just gave her the cold shoulder. I was literally the only person who spoke to her. Yeah.
Okay. So good for you. Oh, that's a great story. That's a great example. I think she has gone over and beyond the call of duty there to fit into some paradigm. Now, this is a future looking question or a potential question for future or for the imagination. Would there be anything differently you would do if you had children or specifically female children about introducing them to their hair journey?
I think the main advantage I'd have is that I know how to care for my natural hair now. It's taken lots of trial and error, and thankfully, you know, there are Black women who are scientists, researchers, and trichologists who are writing about how to care for natural hair. So that's, you know, I feel fortunate to be living in an age where, you know, this knowledge is available. There are girls do tutorials on YouTube, like, you know, you can, and there's a lot of creativity there. As far as I'm concerned, there's no need for using those toxic chemicals on your scalp. I've even heard that there's a link between some hair products which, you know, Black women are allowed to use for some reason. I mean, so basically, I think the formulation of hair care products is also a bit racist in the sense that there's stuff in hair care products with Black women, I don't know about brown women, that you wouldn't find in hair care products for white women. Like
Cancerogenic, lots of cancerogenic items in there.
Yeah, carcinogenic, like the placenta. I distinctly remember there's a conditioner with placenta in it. Why? Why? You know, and it's my hair care journey was the gateway for embracing natural skincare, well, natural hair care first. So making my own hair products with shea butter and aloe vera, you know,
Nice.
all essential oils. So and natural skincare, and then the final hurdle was natural dental care.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a whole other issue and interview we're going to talk about. I know you probably haven't had that experience in itself, but that bleaching is becoming very, very potent in lots of lots of Black countries, Jamaica, African countries. It's happening more than people think, and maybe we'll on a later interview we'll talk about that. I know even men are getting into it now too. It's not only women who are doing that bleaching. I've seen stories and the Sammy Sosa story of that Dominican man, that baseball player, now who's looking pretty light. So there's lots of things going on. So maybe we'll be talking about that as well in some future interview. But
also in the Asian community, in the Asian countries as well, that skin lightening, they call it fairness cream, I think, in places. Fairness cream.
Yeah. Lots of horror stories which I've seen in the news. Very horrible stories, cancer and other things. So maybe we'll talk about that in the future and see your thoughts. But I do have a couple of parting questions, if you don't mind. What would you say to women going through tough, hard hair times? Bad hair days or bad hair lives? What would you tell them?
First of all, I guess I sympathize, but and I would say that there's help out there. I've seen some skilled hair care professionals in our community in the diaspora, right? Kick through matted hair, hair that hadn't been taken, natural hair that hadn't been taken out of a bun for like something like a year, because you know what? Rona hit and times were rough. You know, some weren't able to. Okay, honestly, between you, me, and the internet, I have black friends who have told me that they don't actually know how to care for their hair. So if their hairdresser goes on maternity leave, is sick, can't make the appointment, they're either going to hide their hair under a wig, or I guess these have become, scarves have become more acceptable. So, you know, if I never wore a scarf to work, but I did a lot, but I never covered my hair in a scarf. I think, yeah. And
so those head wraps as well, people use those head wraps?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and actually I thought that was revolutionary when I saw Black women start to do that in a corporate environment, because I was just like, whoa, how has no one just like dragged you to the side and said, but then, you know what's amazing?
Very cultural, the head wrap is very culturally, it's very cultural. Ça revendique your culture. It states your culture lots of times, doesn't it? The head wraps.
In the UK, there's that, you know, okay, for us it might be normal, but Islamophobia is a real thing.
Oh yeah.
So wearing, if you're covered up in that way, it might be misconstrued that, oh, you're Muslim.
Okay.
I think that easily it could have repercussions outside, because I have Muslim friends, and one of my friends told me about how, you know, Muslim girls in the UK have had their head covering ripped off by people in the street. I mean, it's madness.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's almost dangerous. Like I would feel, and I'll give you an example. So once, I can't remember, I think it was raining and I had a scarf. So I decided to cover my hair with the scarf. The looks I got from people, like, I'm not being stared at in the UK, but I thought, oh my God. And then, you know, it dawned on me, I was like, oh my God, they think I'm Muslim. And here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, it doesn't take much. You can, one of my Muslim colleagues told me that one day he was wearing the tunic and the trousers, like I think he'd just come back from prayer, and he was traveling, and he said that he actually got followed by what was probably a plainclothes officer. I know we're digressing from hair, but sorry.
Yeah.
So
it's all related. But yeah, it's a great discussion though.
There's help available. You can get a hairdresser, you can get a friend who's good at doing hair, you can read books, you can watch videos, you can learn how to care for your hair. And you can cover it up while you're trying to figure it out. Like, I know a lot of naturals who wear weaves and wigs, and there's no judgment coming from me, because sometimes time constraints as such, you just have to do, you just have to make do.
Yeah, sometimes you have to throw on a weave, yeah, I see what you're saying. It's one of those days you throw something on and you get out the house. It happens. Okay, so do you have any parting wisdom or anecdotes? I think we started this interview on 400 years without a pick, and I think that's a very good book for people to pick up. Pick up the pick. So I recommend that book. I do not have the author and all the details, but if you put 400 years without a pick into your Google search, you'll probably come up with the book. So how do you feel that book relates to Black African people, it's Black History Month in the UK, and Black culture, and how do you think the symbolism behind that book is meaningful to us nowadays?
I think the revelation for me was when I stopped using a comb. I stopped using combs, brushes, anything that would, you know, I just started using my fingers, and it was from a video that I watched So I think 400 years without without a pick, like not even an Afro pick. I just didn't put anything rigid and straight through my hair, and the condition of my hair improved. I want to say, it was night and day. Basically, my hair wasn't breaking as much. Just basically Afro hair. Don't forget, Afro hair is actually quite fragile. So there's no need to attack it with. There's so much you can do. Your fingers are way more sensitive. You have to have patience when you're, wearing your natural hair. But for me, I don't have a lot of strands on my scalp. So I got to the point with my natural hair that I could wake up, wash it, and style it natural, and go to work. And it wasn't, a 3-hour washing and shampooing and conditioning session. It was just, I had a few hair slides and I twisted it up, like flat twists. I did all sorts of hairstyles. And I was out the door and getting on with my life. And that's the best thing. I guess it's hard because some of us are disconnected from, maybe the generations of women for whom natural hair was the norm, right? Mm-hmm. We've had a gap in between where we've been told that our hair is unmanageable, it's unruly, it's unattractive, it's, all of these horrible things. And unfortunately, some of that crept into the natural hair care movement, whereby, there was this white hairdresser who came up with, I think he was a white hairdresser, who came up with a classification for the different types of hair.
Oh, the nappy hair type thing.
4A, B, C, whatever, 3.
Oh, categories. Okay, I didn't know about that one. Yeah. Okay.
And that's just another big rod that is used to beat women and their hair into submission and to make them feel inadequate. Black women, not all black women. It's just another tool of oppression. Yeah.
And it reminds me of a term which we used to come up with. We mentioned Dada before. Of course, Dada was seen a little negatively when people would say that to you. In our Sierra Leonean culture, it wasn't the best thing, even though for me it sounded good. There's another term which I came up with, which now that you think about it, it's interesting. But when you have like short whatever here, they call you what you get na boboid, right? So it was very emasculating to lots of the young girls when they have boboid. So that's something we need to reflect on about again. It just popped into my mind. Did you have that growing up? Did you have that term?
I remember the term, but once I was traveling to France on the Eurostar, I'll never forget this, and I had it was winter, I had my little pink hat on, and this French woman said, "Excusez-moi, monsieur," and I was like, "Who the hell do you think you're talking to? I'm not a man. Can't you see?" I was like, "I have boobs." Yes, that was quite funny, and I was shocked. But I think she had short hair too. But going back to boboid, so that was my funny story about that. But sorry, it's escaped me now. It was related.
Did you have that term, or did you hear that term when you were coming up, and how did that term impact you? If you heard it,
but not directed towards me. Yes, I know what it was. My revelation was when I went to Ghana for the first time. My friend invited me.
Okay.
And I think all these schoolgirls with really cute, low natural hairstyles. And I was like, I asked my friend, I was like, what's going on? I don't understand. And she was like, oh, it's, I think for, like government schools, I think it's the norm. Girls have to keep their hair low and short because it's low maintenance. And they can do cool things like, have a little some a little bit longer, the rest a little bit shorter, but that's it. They've taken away the stress of spending hours trying to. When in the summer holidays, they can do whatever they want to their hair, but come, the start of term, everyone is,
It's like a uniform.
It was, I thought that blew my mind, and that was in 2013. I was amazed.
It's very interesting. And it's very interesting that some governments are taking some progressive steps about images of beauty. I think some of those governments with those images and banning them is because there's been an outbreaking of it's a health pandemic in terms of bleaching. It's become a pandemic, which is really affecting lots of the countries and really knocking their healthcare as well, because people are getting sick, people are getting endangered by this bleaching pandemic, and of course it's attached to white supremacy and to all the commercials and stuff like that. But it takes forward-thinking governments to really put through policies of that nature for their people. So it's interesting. And so if there's anything else you'd like to mention, anything you left out about your hair journey?
I think I belong to different Black communities, like the church community, and my friends growing up. And unfortunately, some of the most disparaging comments I've had about my hair have come from so-called friends, or it would be things like I might throw on a wig to go to church, and everyone would compliment me on the wig, never compliment me about and even when it was obviously not my hair, like it was like that shiny plastic horror, and I just thought, there's something very wrong here. And these are African women from the Caribbean. It's the same kind of like the standard of beauty is either weave or relaxer, maybe texture transfer, or wigs.
Wigs, yeah. And I think there's even a greater or lesser, might be a lesser accepting of things like locks. I've seen more women doing it, but I think that would throw a wrench, a monkey wrench in the whole equation for lots of ladies.
Freedom.
Yeah. So it's been great talking to you about this wonderful topic. I know that it's always addressed good hair, bad hair, no hair, this hair, that hair. And it gets very confusing for lots of people. And there's so many psychological, white supremacy, other issues which you mentioned, like knowledge of the Black hair, which might not be there for people to use in order for them to have harmony with their hair. So it's great that you brought up all those topics, and I'm sure it's going to help people who are in a lull zone or wondering, what might be done. Thank you for your testimony on your own experience. I think that's so much more meaningful for all those who are listening, and they're going to gain a lot from it. So once again, I'd like to thank you for all your information and your insights, and we will be always in contact.
Always. You're next.
I'm next, and remember, I'm going to talk about surviving in the maximum security facilities.
Of course, yes.
With the ancient African teachings. Okay, peace and blessings. How would they say it again in Cabo Verde? I know obrigado, but how would they say good night?
I think it's bon noche, something like that, but
okay.
By my accent, I don't really know what I'm talking about. And there's a Cape Verde, there's a Cape Verdean Creole as well. So.
Yes, that's what I wanted to know. Maybe you could find that out for me. How would they say good night in the Cape Verdean Creole? I prefer that, actually. That'll be very interesting. Okay, thanks a lot. Peace and blessings.
Thank you.